and click on Contests. 1580 103.3 WPKY Coffee Talk is on the air. Morning conversations about things of interest to you. If you'd like to be a guest on Coffee Talk, just email us your information at WPKYonline@gmail.com. We're proud to call Caldwell County home. WPKY.
And welcome into the Tuesday edition of Coffee Talk. We have so many special guests with us today. I'm excited about today's show. I'm excited about every day's show, but you know, today's a good one too. But before we get started, I do want to remind you the 48th annual Optimist Club radio auction starts next Monday. Be ready. It's going to be right after the 5 o'clock news here on WPKY 1580 103.3. So we're joined this morning by our guest, Kelly Martin, the director of Pennyroyal Hospice. And he brought a special guest with him today, Kenna Hudgins, to talk to us about music therapy. So I'm excited to hear about this because I don't know much about music therapy. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much for coming in this morning. Good morning, Kenna.
Hello. Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you. Well, Kelly, do you have anything you want to say before I get talking to Kenna?
I think one of the things that makes us the most proud is someone like Kenna, because we are the only hospice in Western Kentucky that has a music therapist that we're able to send out to our patients. Music therapy is something that I knew nothing about until I landed in Tallahassee, Florida, and with Big Bend Hospice, and we had about 10 music therapy interns and like 8 or 10 music therapists on staff, and it was a whole new world for me. And when I got here, I accidentally met Kenna at our annual dinner. We struck up a conversation. She was, I think, shocked that someone knew what music therapy was, and I was shocked to find one. And it was a match made in heaven. So before too long, she became a contract employee for Pennyroyal Hospice because we believed in what music therapy could do for our patients, and it has not disappointed in the least. There are stories that will literally curl your hair when you hear some of the things that have happened with our patients. So that's kind of how this all got started. There we go.
So, Kenna, then I have a couple questions for you. Talk to me about how you got involved in music therapy in the first place, and then, you know, obviously I hear how you got involved in Pennyroyal, being part of Pennyroyal Hospice. But how did you get involved in music therapy to begin with?
That goes way back to my childhood. I took piano lessons my whole childhood and always thought that I wanted to be a piano performer. But I was a little too social, liked people a little too much to be in a practice room 8 hours a day by myself. I was kind of at a loss in high school as to what that meant. And then I was introduced to someone at Governor's School for the Arts in Louisville who was going to be a music therapist. And that just struck some interest into looking into it. Well, at that time, Kentucky did not offer any schools for music therapy as a degree. Louisville was considering it. So I went to Ohio University, and I had still never seen, YouTube wasn't a thing at that time. I had never seen a music therapist in action. So that first course that I took, the Introduction to Music Therapy in college as a freshman, I fell in love with the entire profession. Everything about being a musician, but using it as a tool to help others was exactly what I was looking for. And I have not stopped since. It's just been a joy to be able to be a music therapist and offer this to other people. So that's how I kind of got started.
And how long ago was that? I'm not trying to get you to age yourself, but I'm just curious how long
really
you've been
old.
in the industry.
I graduated high school in 95, so that was 95.
Was when you, okay.
Started college.
But when you started your career, that would have been?
2000.
Okay.
In order to be a music therapist, a 6-month internship is a requirement. And so after the 4-year degree, you're required to go be involved in an internship with a board-certified music therapist for a minimum of 6 months. And mine was 10 months in Rochester, New York, with children with disabilities and behavior impairments, and also at the local hospital, we did research projects for patients who had undergone bone marrow transplants, and we were using music to see if their bodies would accept or reject the bone marrow.
So when, what sorts of classes did you have to take to be, to get a degree in music therapy?
This is one of the big misconceptions. Music therapy is actually a music degree. So in order to even get into a program, it's just like any other music degree: music education, music performance, music history. So an audition is required. You have to be proficient on an instrument. The year, senior year of high school, you'd be going and auditioning at different universities and getting accepted or not. Because the first 2 years of a program, you are primarily in the music classes. It's just like music education. It's the last 2 years of college that you expand into special education and mental illness and any kind of psychiatric courses and psychology courses, geriatric courses, and counseling courses. So whereas the music educator would be doing their education courses, the music therapist is doing all these other types of courses. So you do have to be proficient on an instrument. Like I said, I took piano lessons here in Princeton and then at Murray State. And so piano was my primary instrument when I was in school.
All right. And so then tell me, what is a music therapist? What do you do?
A music therapist in general is, the profession is a healthcare profession in which music is used as a tool to help others. We're not teaching music, which is, part of the misconception of it. The person we're working with does not have to be a musician. We're using that music as a tool to identify and address non-musical needs. So, for example, we work with children with autism. We work in psychiatric hospitals with people who have mental illness. We work in nursing homes. We work in hospitals all over. Because music is very neurologic, we all have a response to it. We as the music therapy profession use that to help people either access speech impairments or not, people who have speech impairments access their brain function to the maximum potential, and hopefully that can look like improving cognitive function or speech and language abilities or physical abilities. And in the psychiatric world, it could mean staying more in touch with reality. It could mean breaking down walls to address emotional issues. It's a creative art profession, so it's very broad as to what we can kind of address. It depends on the person's needs. What do they need?
Well, how does that work on I guess maybe a little more of a scientific level? How does music help in a therapeutic way? What does it do?
Well, music incorporates the whole brain. So there's been a ton of research in the last decade to look at true brain function when music's involved. And at the very minimal level, just singing a song in your car, there's so much going on neurologically that's accessing both mood, motor, speech, memory. It's incorporating all these different areas all at the same time, which is why and I'm sure most of the listeners have heard about victims of or survivors of stroke, how sometimes they can begin to talk because of music's involvement, or they can still sing, but they can't talk. It's because music is incorporating the whole brain.
Wow, okay. And I had not heard of that, so,
Okay.
Maybe I'm not the only listener that didn't know that. When did music therapy become a thing?
This is a great question. In the United States, well, first of all, music has always been used therapeutically. Music is in every culture. But as a true profession in the United States, it began after World War II when the soldiers were coming back, and the vet hospitals would hire musicians to go in and play for the veterans. It wasn't long before the professional musicians realized they need more training because a lot was surfacing. There was a lot they didn't know what to do with. You can imagine. It would be traumatic. So the very first degree program was started at Michigan State in 1944. And since then, when it first started, it was primarily with psychiatric patients. In the 70s, it evolved into special education. And then since the 80s, it's been a lot more medical. We still work in schools. We pretty much work anywhere where there are some kind of cognitive or neurologic needs. And there's always research being done to see what music can do for people.
I didn't catch the date. When did you start with Pennyroyal?
2010.
Okay, so the music program at Pennyroyal was non-existent before.
Exactly.
2010.
It was one of the things that whenever I interviewed, and Carolyn Self, who many people know in this region, but Carolyn Self and I had spoken about it during the interview process, and I had shared with the board about music therapy and what it had done for our patients at Big Bend Hospice in Tallahassee, Florida. And it was something that Carolyn Self was all about. She knew about music therapy. She would love to have had it here. And so it was maybe 3 weeks, and I came the first part of March, and back then our annual dinner was always the end of March. And so maybe 3 weeks later I met Kenna, and it was immediate that I wanted to get her on board with us as soon as possible. And the things that you see, the differences that it makes in people's lives is just absolutely unbelievable.
So you're coming up on your anniversary.
Yes. That's right.
Did anybody else know that?
10 years.
Like, well, now that you mention it.
I should get something, right?
Yeah,
Some kind of a gift.
I'll get you a candy bar. Don't worry
Awesome.
about it.
He brought me candy once. He'll bring me
Yes,
candy.
yeah,
He will.
forget about that.
Okay, so then what is like maybe your favorite? Do you have like one story that stands out more than others?
Well, let me first just say what music therapy is within the hospice population. With hospice, you have the patients who have neurologic deterioration, and they have memory problems. They may not recognize people. They may not be able to talk. Pretty isolated, I would say. That looks very different when I work with those patients than it does with the patients who are very aware of their decline and maybe have a cancer diagnosis, and their mind is still with it, but their body is failing. So there's two different approaches. With those who have neurologic deterioration, so we're talking dementia and Alzheimer's, I'm using music to access whatever neurologic function I can. And we know that music cognition is one of the last areas of the brain to go. And so a person who may not remember family members, may not know their own name, they can still actually remember most of the songs from their childhood and young adulthood, which is fabulous when you find those songs for a person who is not really able to connect with the world around them. Then they can, even if they are not verbally responding, which most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, with music therapy techniques, we can get them to respond verbally. But even if they are not, you can kind of tell that maybe sometimes the toe is tapping or the fingers are tapping or the eyebrows are up. And you can see there is an awareness there that you're bringing some kind of connection to the outside world to them. And for example, I always have the most recent stories, I think, because when I do this, sometimes I'm even shocked to see the response. And yesterday I had a patient who, we would pretty much deem her nonverbal. She's at the last stage of Alzheimer's. But she really just kind of stares at people when they come in, and you talk to her and there's not much facial expression at all from her. But when I start singing with her and using certain neurologic music therapy techniques, which I'm not going to go into all of that, but it involves increasing stimulation from listening to then tapping to using instruments, getting their body involved however I can. But anyway, she started filling in words, one word at a time, and then, through gradual techniques, she started actually singing phrases. And then I always check and see what more can I get? So I asked her name. She knew her first and her last name. She said them to me, and she continued to sing the rest of the session. So even the caregiver sitting there says she never does this. She doesn't talk. And there's still a lot going on. And it's such a joy to be able to pull that out of people. So that's one situation. Another story, which will always be near and dear to me, I think, comes from, it was actually last summer. I had a patient who had come to Western Kentucky from Colorado. He had come back to take care of his father, and then his father had passed away, and he just kind of stayed here. But his 3 adult children were still in Colorado. And so here he is, terminal. He's got to stay in Kentucky, but he really kind of longs to be with his children. And there was a strained relationship with them, and I'm still not sure if any of us really know what had gone on, but they did not have a close relationship. I engaged him in some songwriting, which is a thing I typically do to help people kind of leave a legacy for others. We will write a song together and pull out the important parts of their lives. But I knew in our song we needed to address his relationship with his children. And it took several weeks, and finally we got to the bridge of the song. And he was able to express through a few tears, and this man did not show much emotion. He was able to apologize and tell them how he really felt, which was that he loved them and he was very proud to be their father, and that he regretted some things. And he shared all this in his song. And so that was that. I asked him if I could email the song to his children. He agreed. And so I did that. Well, then for whatever reason, I don't normally participate in the funerals, but for whatever reason, I felt really drawn to share this song because he didn't share a lot, but he had really opened up during music therapy sessions, and this song expressed a lot of just him. So I was privileged to be able to sing that song at his funeral, and 2 of his children were actually there. And it was the first time, I think, in my career where I had experienced a kind of a catharsis within a music therapy session that then transferred into, I was the messenger to sing his feelings and his thoughts to his family at the last moment when he's gone. And now they all have this song where if there was anything that had gone unsaid, they at least knew how he felt, and there was kind of closure.
Yeah.
You're proud of that one, aren't you? My favorite one, I'm going to steal this for a second, but my favorite one was that we had a lady with neurological disorder, involuntary movement of her arms and her legs and all kinds of things, and Kenna went in and began playing. And as she played, and we have a video of this, as she played, the lady's leg began to move in time with the music. And it was the most amazing thing, and it didn't stop there. The phone rings or the husband calls the daughter while Kenna's there or something along that line. Daughter lives in Texas. Mom's not been able to speak to her in months. Holds the phone up to Mom's ear, and, the daughter's saying, "Hey, Mom, hello, Mom," that kind of thing. Kenna begins to play on the keyboard, "Hello, Karen," and she plays it about 3 times, and Mom, with a very weak, scratchy, almost in the dying process voice, says, "Hello, Karen." And she does that a couple of times, and Kenna takes it a step further and plays, "Hello, Karen, I love you." And about the 3rd time she played that, a mom in Texas, here's her daughter, the daughter in Texas, here's her mom for the last time say, "Hello, I love you." The last words that daughter ever heard out of her mom's mouth were, "I love you," because the mom died shortly, a week, 2 weeks later. It was the most amazing thing I have ever seen. I watched that thing 400 times probably. I cannot watch it. I cannot talk about it without the emotion, without the tears, without any part of that, because to me there is no greater gift that we can give as an organization, as a music therapist, as a team. There's no greater gift that we can give to any family member than the last words out of your mom's mouth to be, "I love you." Mm-hmm. That girl will take that with her, lady will take that with her for the rest of her life, because it was Mom and it was a miracle, and to me, and it's just incredible. So that's what music therapy does to me in our realm, and that's why, among all of these things, it's why I think it's so important that our patients are able to experience Kenna and able to experience music therapy, because it's life-changing, not just for the patient, but for the family as well. And man, when you can, at some point in your career, hang it up, as Kenna will do and as I will do at some point, 100 years from now, but as we hang it up, it's like, wow, we were able to change lives, make a difference, and leave a legacy for people, which is just cool. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Kenna.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I didn't know all this was involved, so I am so glad to have you here today to talk about this. We definitely need to revisit this subject, maybe without the tears. I always tell my guests, if you cry, I'll cry. Don't cry, because it's going to get to me. But yeah, and we've talked before, Kelly, in hospice, we've talked about how it's not just for the person that is the client, it's for the families too. And it sounds like this music therapy doesn't just affect the patient, it's going to affect the family and everybody around. So thank you guys so much for coming in today. I appreciate having you, Kelly. It's always great to have you with us and talking about hospice, and I really appreciate I'll go get me some water, we'll be good. Thank you so much for coming in. All right, we're going to have a couple more guests on Coffee Talk real soon. We're going to talk to a local legend, I understand, coming up. And we're also going to talk to Amanda Davenport, because if you remember, the Lake Barkley Partnership is having a job fair on March the 27th. You don't want to miss that, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Tourist Center. Amanda will be in here in a little bit to tell us a little more about that.
Napa know-how.
Chase Elliott here, letting you know that when you spend $25 at Napa this month, you get a free Chase Elliott racing hat. Need a set of brakes? How about a new battery? Both are hat-worthy. Replacing an air filter, then adding on wiper blades and headlamps just to break $25? That works too. Go get your free Chase Elliott hat today. Quality parts, helpful people, free hats. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
At participating Napa Auto Parts stores while supplies last. Offer ends 3/31/19.
Your daughter's a genius, and with all those smarts comes a lot of travel. So you're at Hampton by Hilton for a science fair in Springfield. Last month she was a mathlete in Martindale. Next she'll be a robot whiz in Riverside. She fuels up on free Hampton waffles